If you 1T ship to me because my drive is less than an hour, then I'll make it in an hour. I work from home for a company that makes software for mobile devices. Of course, a lot of the work I do requires having the physical devices. If I needed a specific one, I put in a request, and they ship it to me. However, recently one of my requests to ship it was denied, and I was told I have to pick it up. Their reasoning? I live within an hour of the office, so I'm expected to come in to get them myself. The problem is, if you look up the drive on Google Maps, it does take under an hour, just barely. But only if you look it up at like 2 in the afternoon, or in the middle of the night when no one is driving. If you look it up during normal commuting time, it is never less than that. I am writing this at 7 a.m. and it s at 1:15. In 30-45 minutes, it s gonna be even worse. I asked if I could just pay for shipping myself, since it would be cheaper for me to do than pay for gas and parking. Nope, gotta come in. So now I come in, I take lunch, and then head in at 1 in the afternoon. I get what I need and immediately leave. It takes me just under 2 hours total, and because I'm only running in for a few minutes, I can leave my car in front of the building and not have to buy parking. 2 hours that I would normally spend doing work, I am now spending in my car. For some reason, I am now back on the approved list for shipping. A phrase comes to mind: penny wise, pound foolish. I would have made sure to make the trip at peak rush hour times and gotten it to 3 hours, but you got the desired result with the normal 2H drive, so anytime I see something being shipped even across town, I have to remind myself that that S still cheaper than the labor involved for someone to drive back and forth themselves. Now expense claim the kilometers for your personal vehicle use. I was traveling for work on my way home and ran into a coworker in the airport also on his way home. This was a Wednesday, and Thursday was a holiday, so I was taking a 4-day weekend with my project manager, S. Blessing. My coworker, SPM, being a dick, insisted that he work on Friday, thinking he would sit in his hotel room for the single-day holiday. My coworker flew home, then flew back to work on Friday. Mind you, the one-way travel took several hours. He arrived on site, and those were the top comments. Which side are you on? And hey, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. We post stories like this every week. Funny enough, I have a few more stories from that contract too long didn't read. Short-sighted head of client ET thinks my firm is trying to get him fired. I was told I can only communicate with 2 people. Okay then. This happened a few years ago, but I think it fits in the sub. I was working as an IT consultant for a very niche pharmaceutical firm. My role was to provide a production support position. I was told I was only allowed to communicate with 2 specific people on the client side. One was the head of IT and the other was his subordinate. This was in an email that clearly and in no uncertain terms stated that I was only allowed to communicate to those 2 individuals, and they would handle communication with the business side after I sent my root cause analysis of production incidents. I thought that was strange, but I was informed that the head of IT felt threatened by our company and thought we were there to threaten his job. So I was told to play nice so he would realize we really were there to help. So for a few months I would sign on and check various system logs for processing errors, AMD failures. I would determine the issue and fire off an email with my findings and solution suggestions. Then one day I get called into my Director S office. He says the client is pissed off and wants to know what I've been doing, because they see me log on and then nothing else all day. I tried to tell the director what I do, but he doesn't listen. Jerk even put me on a performance improvement plan. Next thing I know, I'm in a meeting with 8 vice presidents from my firm. It is very clear they plan to fire me by the end of the meeting. At this point, I ask if I can just show them my email history. I show them the email that states I can only communicate with 2 specific people on the client side. I then show them the emails I sent to those 2 people as instructed providing my analysis and suggested process improvements to handle the exceptions in the logs. Suddenly, 8 VPs no longer want to sacrifice me to appease the client. Instead, they take the evidence to the client. A week later, I find that out the client ES head of IT was escorted out of the building by security, and that apparently a college buddy of his wanted the support contract. IT head figured he would just make my firm look bad in order to cancel our contract and get a new contract for his pal. How the head of IT didn't consider that a digital trail existed is mind-boggling. He was worried about us taking his job away and made it into a self-fulfilling prophecy. Funny enough, I have a few more stories from that contract. Too long, didn't you read? Short-sighted head of client IT thinks my firm is trying to get him fired. He proceeded to get himself fired. What I find most terrifying is how your director treated you. Any fallout to that jerk of your director? Didn't the 8 VPs chew him up for not managing the situation before it was escalated to them? Pretty amazing. The client tried that with no verification. Sigh. Wonderful story. I tried to tell the director what I do, but he doesn't listen. Jerk even put me on a performance improvement plan. That one should have been keep everything documented. Alright, you've heard the story and the comments. Who do you agree with? And hey, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. We post stories like this every week. She never replied. Our office had a strict clean desk policy, so I made sure my desk was always completely clean. This was a few years ago at a company I worked at for about 18 months. The office introduced a clean desk policy, which on paper was reasonable enough. The idea being that no sensitive documents should be left out overnight and that workspaces should be tidy. The policy as written stated that all desks must be completely clear of any personal or work items at the end of each day, and that compliance would be checked during the evening by the facilities team, who would leave a yellow card on any desk that failed inspection. If you got 3 yellow cards, your manager was notified. I want to be clear that I did not have a problem with the spirit of this policy. My problem was with my manager, who had introduced it specifically because one person on our team had a genuinely chaotic desk, and rather than speak to that person directly, she sent a policy to all 14 of us. I decided to comply completely and enthusiastically. Every single evening, I packed everything into my bag and took it home. My monitor I could not take, so I left that. But my keyboard, my mouse pad, my headset, my notebook, my pen pot, the small plant I had on the corner of my desk, the sticky note holder, all of it went into my bag each night and came back the next morning. My desk passed every single inspection with no yellow cards. It also meant that I spent the first 15 to 20 minutes of every workday unpacking and setting up, and the last 10 minutes packing down. After about 3 weeks, my manager asked if I could maybe just leave the keyboard and mouse. I said I was just following the policy as written, which stated all items. She clarified the policy 2 days later to specify that equipment could remain. Only personal items and documents needed to be cleared. I sent a reply asking for a definition of personal items, since my plant and notebook were personal but my keyboard technically belonged to the company. She never replied. The policy was updated a week later with a list of specific exemptions. The original target of the policy had not changed their desk at all during any of this. I like how your manager is both trying so hard not to be arbitrary, but then falling into it anyway and failing to actually affect the change they wanted. The original target of the policy had not changed their desk at all during any of this. OMG, that part cracked me up. Thank for this. The manager, I really don't want to talk to my report about their desk, so I'll put this policy in place. Chaotic desk person, fuck this. I'ma get 3 yellows and then let's see what my manager has to say about it. Because doing your job as a manager is hard. Do your job. Talk to the person, write them up, let HR take it from there. Meanwhile, send out kudos for all the normal folks, decent enough to keep their desks clean. I had the opposite issue at a job I worked about 25 years ago. I had a large desk placed conspicuously at the entrance to an IT department. My work was almost exclusively done on the computer database design and help desk. And when I was bored, I worked on digitizing the thousands of receipts and invoices that were filed in a cabinet behind me. On my desk, I had a couple pictures, one plastic document, inbox, my computer and my phone. My work was 95 paper free if you walked up to me at random. Alright, you've heard the story and the comments. Who do you agree with? And hey, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. We post stories like this every week.